Hi everybody, Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, and today's contract tip, we are still continuing on with the changes that the Georgia Association of REALTORS has made to the 2021 contract package. So please watch the entire series. I will link the other videos below. We also teach Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, Maximum One companies, all of them, host continuing 3-hour continuing education classes on the changes called the 2021 GAR contract changes. I will link the link to the online virtual calendar below. Those are virtual. Those are free. This video is being recorded in January of 2021. We also had classes in December as well. And so let's move on. So today what I want to talk about is the new special stipulation that GAR has added for 2021. They've only added one, and let me go over it, and then let me give you an example where it might be useful to you. So the special stipulation that GAR has added for 2021 is Special Stipulation number 627, Expiration of Deadlines. And this is how it reads. All time deadlines set forth herein shall expire at blank AM or PM on that day of the deadline. So GAR Special Stipulation 627. That's how it reads. Now let me give you an example of why that is important. So the GAR purchase and sale agreement and the GAR contract packages, they do reference time, but what they reference, well, let me even back up further from there. When there is a deadline specified in the contract package, it just has a date. And if it is the date, so for example, if it goes through January 11th, 2021, that contingency, those provisions, the opportunity for the party to perform based on that contingency, based on the contract, goes through the entire day. The entire day without any written specification goes till through 11:59 p.m. at night. So all time frames deal with a date that goes through 11:59 p.m. of that date. Closing date, contingencies, so forth and so on. The closing date one I'm going to get back and address in just a second. So that's why this is important. The purchase and sale agreement does reference timeframes, but it talks about the contracts being in Eastern time. It talks about the definition of banking days versus calendar days. It talks about time is of the essence. It talks about what a business day is. It talks about all of these things. It talks about that no deadlines can be extended by day other than the closing date if it falls on a weekend or a federal holiday. But everything else, nothing is specified. So again, as I mentioned, it goes through 11:59 p.m. So here's why you may want to use that special stipulation, either blanketly like it has written, or perhaps with respect to one of the deadlines or the other. Here's where a lot of people are getting in trouble. You have a closing date. Let's say we have a contract and we are scheduled to close on January 31st, 2021. Let's say you are representing the seller and you get notice from the closing attorney that there is an issue with the title, or you get notice that there's an issue with the loan, or something on the buyer's behalf, and the buyer is not able to close. So you get this on the day of closing or a day before closing, so forth and so on. The day of closing in my example is January 31st, 2021. you get this notice that the buyer is not going to be able to close. You're on the day of closing. Let's say you had a closing scheduled for 11 a.m. At 1 p.m., the seller sends the TNR, the notice of termination. Guess what? Yep, the seller has just defaulted on the contract, and the buyer is going to get their earnest money back. The date of closing is January 31st, 2021. They have the buyer has the opportunity through 11:59 p.m. on that date to close, to amend the contract. They could have in the GAR contract, they could have a provision for an 8-day unilateral extension. So there's a whole variety of things the buyer has through that date. Now, is a closing attorney going to stay and close the deal at 11 p.m.? Probably not. Nevertheless, per the contract, those contingency timeframes, including closing date, go through that entire day. So what should you do? Well, if you don't have any special stipulation in a contract agreeing to a specific time frame, then the seller needs to wait until 11:59 p.m. comes and goes, and it's now February 1st, and then send the TNR that the buyer failed to close, and if they are requesting the earnest money as liquidated damages for the buyer's default. But in my example, they sent and this happens all the time. We're having sellers sending terminations on the day of closing when they know for a fact the buyer is not able to close. A lot of times, also, it's either something with the buyer's loan or something or so forth. Well, you don't know. It could be the buyer gets cash to close it. So my point is, this is a very important special stipulation to use in whole to apply to all contractual contingencies or a closing date, just to keep that in mind. If not, if you don't use that, the other important lesson for this video is do not send a termination notice prematurely, or you could be harming your client. You could put your own client in default rather than letting the contract fail to close based on a buyer default, the buyer not able to come to closing, and have the seller default accidentally. Hope this contract tip helped you out. I'd love to hear your comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education. Bye.